Look at the small intestines in the start of the lower GI here. Uh, Really, the lower GI is where most of your digestion and absorption is going to take place. And again, obviously, there's stuff that we can't digest and that stuff that we have to eliminate. Uh, in terms of the small intestine, there is three main regions to this. You have your duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Duodenum, sometimes considered part of the upper GI. It's also an interesting one in that it's one of the few parts of this that actually will go retroperitoneal for a little bit. Again, most of the chemical digestion of almost everything taking place here. So we're going to have different amylases breaking down carbs, other proteases breaking down proteins, nucleases breaking down nucleic acids, as well as lipases breaking down fats here. And again, that chyme from the stomach is going to be mixed with a number of different secretions to facilitate this process. There is a number of accessory organs, and we'll talk about those in kind of the next one here. So we get through the small intestine, then we go back and kind of talk about some of those other organs. But you're going to have bile being produced by the liver. You're going to have its bile stored in the gallbladder and then released from there, as well as a couple different pancreatic secretions with digestive enzymes and a bicarb-rich solution to kind of neutralize the acidic chyme, talking about all that stuff with the accessory organs. Once everything moves through the small intestine, it goes to the large intestine, where really we just finish up a little bit of absorption. Very little digestion at all is taking place. There is a little bit, but it's not initiated by any enzymes that we're releasing. It's more bacterial in nature at that point. We're mainly getting water, electrolytes, and a few other things out of what's left there, as well as kind of packaging stuff for elimination. So if you look at the small intestine, it's going to be kind of in the middle there. You have the large intestine that goes and kind of works its way around it. Again, duodenum, jejunum, and ileum are the three sections to that. It's really from the pyloric sphincter, which is the junction between the stomach and the duodenum, to the ileocecal valve, which is that junction between the ileum and the cecum, which is the first part of the large intestine. A lot of times referred to as a small bowel. It's mainly based on diameter, the small versus large. In terms of length, the small intestine is much longer. Nutrients spend upwards of 12 hours in this region here, working their way through. And again, most of our absorption, most of our digestion, most everything is happening in the small intestine. Again, three main parts to it. I would say know which part and know what's going on there. So the first part of the small intestine is the duodenum. It's from the stomach, I always kind of refer to it as the mixing bowl. It's only about a foot long. It's receiving secretions from the contents from the stomach, secretions from the liver and gallbladder, as well as from the pancreas. It's really where we're putting everything in there that's going to be needed to do most of that digestion throughout the rest of the small intestine. So some digestion, a little bit of absorption, but again, not where the lion's share is taking place because it's only a foot long. The jejunum is the second part. This is about 8 foot long. It's entirely within the peritoneum, so that's what that intra means. Again, lots of chemical digestion and absorption being held in place by that connective tissue mesentery, so stuff doesn't get folded or pinched. We're going to see this small intestine, along with the pancreas, is releasing a lot of these enzymes that are necessary to break down these different nutrients. The last part is the ileum. It is the longest part. It's about 12 foot long. Again, entirely intraperitoneal, really finishing up a lot of that absorption. A little bit less digestion taking place here. If we look at the histologist, you'll see that there's actually a lot of immune cells in this region here called Peyer's patches. Again, held in place by that mesentery. Again, if you were somehow to have your stomach sliced open, not your stomach, but your abdomen sliced open, your intestines are not going to fall out like they show in movies some of the time. This mesentery holds everything in place. And you can see the mesentery on this image right here. Again, it keeps knots or folds or other things from pinching off here and not letting contents move through. A big thing with the intestines in general is we do not want anything getting stuck or impacted. That can be very dangerous because a lot of times pressure can build up, and if anything bursts behind that, there is a large amount of bacteria in here and people can get septic very, very easily. The other thing that we see with the digestive tract is there is a lot of folds upon top of folds upon top of folds. So you have circular folds, which are called plicae circularis, Like I said, they're kind of active speed bumps that slow down that chyme a little bit. One of the things they're doing here, though, is increasing surface area. These are most common in the duodenum, and as you work your way further through the small intestine, they tend to decrease. By the end of that middle section, these are going to be pretty much gone. On these placae circularis and lining the whole thing there, you have these finger-like extensions of the mucosa called villi. We've actually seen these under the microscope when we looked in AMP1 at simple columnar, for example. This epithelium covering the connective tissue underneath generally has a capillary network in there, along with what's called a lacteal, which is a lymphatic capillary. One of the things that's kind of interesting is the lacteals do most of your lipid absorption for the digestion, where it's not going into the bloodstream. It goes actually right into the lymphatics. And you can see here with these placae circularis, those circular folds with those little villi on the surface of that. And if you look here, you can see the capillary bed that's going up into each villus along with that lacteal. And you can see it's simple columnar that's lining all this. And one of the things that we'll see on the simple columnar too is you're going to have microvilli that are on the surface of these simple columnar epithelial cells, again increasing that surface area even more. When you think about what's happening here, the more surface area, the more we can absorb. So the whole idea here is to get as much surface area as possible. It's a 20-some foot long tube. The surface area is about 3,000 square feet. So it's about the size of a large house in terms of square footage. And a lot of times they talk about this being the brush border because it looks a little fuzzy along the side there. And again, pancreas is going to send out a bunch of enzymes. Your intestinal epithelium also sends out a number of enzymes that are involved in chemical digestion of proteins, lipids, carbs, and nucleic acids, and these are referred to as brush border enzymes. As well as this microvilli that are going to have a lot of these transport proteins and other things necessary for these digested products to move into the epithelium and therefore into the bloodstream. And this just kind of shows us out with the microvilli. You can see a micrograph of this, an electron micrograph of that. The intestines also are going to have these little infolds here, really kind of minimal glands. It's just kind of a dead end, kind of little single straight drop down into that material right next to the intestinal villi. They call these intestinal glands. Going to secrete those enzymes. Has a lot of goblet cells. Again, generally as we work through the digestive tract, once you start in the small intestine, goblet cells, the further you go towards the anus, the more goblet cells there tends to be. These will increase and increase and increase throughout the rest of the digestive tract. We do have some enteroendocrine cells in these things here as well, releasing that cholecystokinin is the main thing here. They can interact with the stomach, as we'll see a little bit later on. The other thing that these glands are doing is they're releasing, along with the pancreas, releasing some alkaline substances to help neutralize that acidic chyme from the duodenum. And you can see kind of the gastric gland right here, just a little invagination right here with enteroendocrine cells, and some of these cells are going to be making these enzymes. You can see goblet cells found throughout. And really when it comes to how stuff moves through here, we're going to see the more stretching that's taking place. So if there's more stretching taking place, you're going to get a lot more segmentation, which is kind of pinching off a couple areas and moving stuff back and forth, not really moving it towards your rear end, where peristalsis, if there's less stretching, more liquids, peristalsis is going to tend to happen faster, and that's going to move stuff in that anal direction towards the exit of the body. And again, more parasympathetic activity is going to increase this motility. More sympathetic activity will decrease this motility. So again, parasympathetic is rest and digest. Increased parasympathetic activity increases digestive activity. So what we'll talk about next time is some of these accessory glands, and then move on to the large intestine, and then we'll be kind of heading out of this to the next chapter.